maybe in the way you remember something through a photograph. I maybe think the first thing I made, I think I know the first thing I made, but maybe isn't, but I know it because my mum still has it sat on a window, and it was a slug, a hedgehog, and a tortoise made out of clay, about this big, and painted, kind of really expressionistic sort of styly, and yeah, and she still has them. Yeah, I was thinking about that, I guess, in terms of you posing it as a question about sort of childhood and things being sort of larger than you, or the kind of Alice in Wonderland thing, but I think I've always been interested in expanding or enlarging things as a way of kind of playing with the logic of something. Like, if like, I made a series of giant pockets, had they been sort of small pockets on the wall, just isolated pockets, it's a very different thing to something very large. I think you sort of have to think about the thing very physically in relation to your body, then in a different way. Maybe you sort of configure yourself and make sense of it with yourself in a different way, I think. I mean, even like this is sort of, it's like a big experience curtain, it's kind of a big hall of things, whereas like a small macrame. I guess it's sort of taking things as well that are old style techniques and doing something else with them, which normally involves sort of taking it out of its scale or its comfort zone, I think. Not really. I think I sort of tend to, I'll develop an interest in something like macrame, for example, and I'll decide, like, I mean, that will happen. Something I've always wanted to learn how to do, and I decided, I went to Los Angeles and see it for 3 months, and my sort of task I set myself was learning macrame. So I'd maybe go on eBay and buy bits of macrame just to see, like, I find it easier to learn by seeing something. So I'll buy things more with a view of using it or sort of borrowing from it or teaching myself, because a lot of these things I teach myself, so it's kind of just, I like to see how someone else has done it. But I don't collect, I wouldn't say I collect. The only thing I really collect is plants, like cactuses, that's about it. I've sort of wondered about it and wonder whether it's kind of about those sort of processes and types of making. Maybe it's quite a way to sort of transport yourself to another time, or like to remember something, or to evoke. It's quite evocative of sort of, well, it's quite nostalgic in a way maybe, and sort of bringing that forward into something now, I guess. I think California, like for me, like that kind of, it really suits me. I mean, obviously I've been there a few times, but it really suits me in how I work. I think the kind of, the attitude, or just the sort of, the colour of like LA, like that, I think that was the thing that drew me there in the first place, kind of washed out, sun-bleached colour and kind of sort of making, and yeah, if that's a folklore, I don't know, it's kind of real. I think, not deliberately so, but I think I always look to that for a starting point, or I always sort of take that as a point of reference. I think, like, I mean, I talked earlier about collecting cactuses and succulents. I was always interested, I thought I was always interested in cactuses and succulents because of them sort of being this modular, sort of repeated thing that kind of grows upon itself, upon itself, upon itself, so you get like a sort of, it's almost just really sculptural, I always thought, but I think also it's this thing of something coming from dust or something coming from nothing, and I always like the idea of kind of, it's quite cheesy, kind of thinking about an artistic practice sort of in the similar terms to how you think of a garden, or like things growing, things being cut back, things dying, things flowering, things like all these different ways. And so I wanted, I guess, it made me think of this film that I watched a few years ago that I really, really like, and it sort of spoke to a lot of those things that I was thinking about. And the narrative is that this guy, this kind of simple guy, has grown up in a gated garden, like I think it's in New York, I can't remember. I know it's in Washington, because the whole thing happens in Washington. And he's sort of simple, and he's always been looked after by this rich businessman, and this rich businessman finally dies, and suddenly he's kind of cast out into the world, and he doesn't even have I think his name's Chance, because he was found, and so he doesn't really know, and then he accidentally bumps into this very wealthy businessman and his wife, and they say, "What's your name?" And he says, "Oh, Chance the gardener," and they think he says Chauncey Gardner or something, and then the whole film is just this series of misunderstandings where people aren't really listening to him, they're kind of asking questions, but so they don't hear Chance the gardener, they hear Chauncey Gardner, and because he's dressed really well they think he's this wealthy man, and then he just sort of speaks in metaphors. Well, he's not speaking in metaphors, he's just speaking quite plainly about the garden, but they think he's kind of being really wise, and kind of he's got all these kind of I don't know how you say it, sort of musings about sort of because he ends up advising the president. It's all like this really silly sort of series of events that in turn he ends up being like the head of, like becoming an advisor to the president and being a celebrity and everyone listening to him, and it's just all really sort of lovely things. Like I was going to read you some lines from it where he's talking to the president. So the president says, "Mr. Gardner, do you agree with Ben, or do you think that we can stimulate growth through temporary incentives?" I think they're talking about their economic policy for the... And Chance the gardener says, "As long as the roots are not severed, all is well, and all will be well in the garden." And the president says, "In the garden?" And he says, "Yes, in the garden. Growth has its seasons. First comes spring and summer, and then we have fall and winter, and then we get spring and summer again. Spring and summer? Yes. Then fall and winter? Yes. I think that our insightful young friend is saying that we welcome the inevitable seasons of nature, and we're upset by the seasons of our economy." And Chance the gardener says, "Yes, there will be growth in the spring." And finally sort of ends saying, "Mr. Gardner, I must admit that this is one of the most refreshing and optimistic statements I've heard in a very, very long time. I admire your good solid sense. That's precisely what we lack in Capitol Hill." So it's just that thing of everyone, I think, this thing of everyone wanting to read into that he's saying all these things, and he literally is just talking about the garden because that's all he's ever done, and they all want that to mean something else, and it does, and they take all these things as being really sort of insightful, and oh, he's so intelligent, and I think the film ends with him, they're talking about him becoming like head of this big company because they all think he's so intelligent when actually he's completely, he's got like the mental age of a 10-year-old or something, I don't know, but yeah, you should watch it, it's good.